The grand throne room of the Galactic Empire stretched endlessly, its crystalline walls reflecting the light of 1,000 stars. Princess Lyra stood at the center, her silver hair flowing like liquid mercury down her back. Her father, Emperor Zethros, sat on his throne made of compressed star matter, watching as yet another suitor approached. Prince Korthax of the Valonian Empire strode forward. His body was covered in diamond-hard scales that sparkled under the cosmic lights. He was the 15th prince to try for Lyra's hand this month. Princess Lyra, Korthax began, his voice echoing like thunder. I offer you command of 10,000 warships and rule over 17 solar systems. My people have conquered galaxies. Choose me, and you shall be the most powerful empress in known space. Lyra's violet eyes remained cold. She had heard similar offers before. Power, wealth, armies, planets. Every prince offered the same things wrapped in different packages. Tell me, Prince Korthax, she said softly. What do you know of kindness? The prince's reptilian features twisted in confusion. Kindness, I know strength, I know victory. My armies have never known defeat. Then you know nothing I value. Lyra replied, turning away. Emperor Zethros sighed deeply as another prince left rejected. His daughter had turned down the sons of every major royal house in the galaxy. The Crimson Prince of Aldebaran had offered her immortality. The twin princes of the binary throne promised her control over time itself. Even the mysterious Prince of the Void Walkers, beings who lived between dimensions, had been sent away. In the maintenance corridors below the throne room, Marcus Chen pushed his cleaning cart along the polished floors. He hummed an old Earth song while working, unaware of the drama unfolding above. Marcus had been hired 3 months ago when the Empire started recruiting humans for various positions. Humans were new to the galactic community, discovered only 5 years prior. Most species looked down on humans. They were physically weak compared to others, had no natural armor or claws, couldn't breathe in space, and their technology was primitive, but they worked hard and complained little, making them perfect for service jobs. Marcus wiped down the walls with practiced efficiency. He took pride in his work, making sure every surface gleamed. The other janitors, mostly from various servant species, mocked him for caring so much about cleaning. But Marcus had learned from his grandmother that any job worth doing was worth doing well. A soft crying sound made him stop. He followed the noise to a small alcove, where Princess Lyra sat alone, tears streaming down her perfect face. Marcus hesitated. Protocol demanded servants never speak to royalty, unless spoken to first. But his grandmother had also taught him that kindness didn't follow protocols. Excuse me, miss, he said gently, pulling a clean cloth from his cart. Are you all right? Lyra looked up, startled. She had never seen a human this close before. His face was plain by galactic standards. No scales, no glowing eyes, no telepathic tendrils, just brown eyes filled with genuine concern. You're speaking to me? She asked, amazed. Do you know who I am? You're someone who's crying, Marcus replied simply, offering her the cloth. That's all I need to know. Lyra took the cloth, dabbing at her tears. No one had ever approached her with such simple kindness. I'm Princess Lyra, she said softly. Marcus's eyes widened, and he immediately started to bow. But Lyra stopped him. Please don't. I like that you talk to me like a normal person. Well, you are a normal person, Marcus said, sitting down at a respectful distance. Just one with a fancy title, and a lot of pressure, I'm guessing. Lyra laughed, a sound like silver bells. That's one way to put it. My father wants me to marry, but every prince who comes sees only power and conquest. They offer me armies and wealth, but none of them understand. Understand what? Marcus asked. That I want someone who sees beauty in small things, someone who helps others not for gain, but because it's right, someone who can find joy in simple moments. She gestured at the grand palace around them. All this power, all this wealth, it means nothing without love and kindness. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. My grandmother used to say that the measure of a person isn't in what they own, but in how they treat others when no one's watching. Your grandmother sounds wise, Lyra said, genuinely smiling for the first time in months. She was, Marcus replied, a hint of sadness in his voice. She raised me after my parents died in the first contact wars. Taught me everything I know. They talked for an hour, Marcus forgetting his cleaning duties and Lyra forgetting her royal obligations. She learned about Earth, its blue skies, its rain, its flowers. Marcus described seasons changing, something unknown on climate-controlled palace worlds. He told her about holidays where families gathered, about neighbors helping neighbors, about the simple joy of sharing a meal with friends. In return, Lyra shared her dreams. She wanted to use her position to help others, to bring different species together in understanding rather than conquest. She spoke of establishing hospitals and schools instead of military bases, of creating gardens where all species could gather in peace. Those sound like beautiful dreams, Marcus said sincerely. Everyone else calls them foolish, Lyra replied sadly. Then everyone else is wrong, Marcus said firmly. The galaxy has enough conquerors. Maybe it's time for someone who wants to heal instead of hurt. A harsh voice interrupted them. Princess Lyra, what are you doing speaking with this servant? Lord Vex, the Emperor's advisor, stood in the corridor, his 6 eyes narrowing with disgust. His species, the Kozari, were known for their strict adherence to hierarchy. I'm having a conversation, Lord Vex, Lyra said, standing gracefully. Something more meaningful than any I've had with the so-called princes. This is highly inappropriate. A human janitor? They're barely civilized. Your father will hear of this. Good, Lyra said defiantly. Tell him I've finally found someone worth talking to. She turned to Marcus, who had stood and was gripping his cleaning cart nervously. Same time tomorrow? She asked hopefully. Marcus glanced at the furious Lord Vex, then back at the princess. Her eyes held a loneliness he recognized, the same loneliness he'd felt since arriving at the palace. I'll be here, he promised. As Lyra walked away, head held high despite Vex's sputtering protests, Marcus realized his simple life had just become very complicated. But looking at the cloth she'd forgotten to return, still damp with her tears, he found he didn't mind. The next day, Marcus arrived at the alcove to find it empty. His heart sank. Of course, a princess wouldn't return to meet a janitor. Lord Vex had probably convinced her how inappropriate it was, but then he heard footsteps and turned to find Lyra approaching, dressed in simple robes instead of her usual elaborate gowns. You came, she said, relief evident in her voice. I said I would, Marcus replied simply. People say a lot of things they don't mean, Lyra said, sitting down and patting the space beside her. Marcus sat, maintaining respectful distance. Humans have a saying, your word is your bond. My grandmother taught me that if you make a promise, you keep it. Tell me more about her, Lyra asked. She seems to have taught you many things. So Marcus told stories of his grandmother, how she'd worked 3 jobs to support him but always made time to help neighbors, how she'd teach him to cook simple meals that filled their small apartment with warmth, how she'd stayed up nights when he was sick, singing old songs from her childhood. She sounds wonderful, Lyra said when he finished. I wish I could have met her. She would have liked you, Marcus said. She always said that true nobility came from the heart, not from titles. Their meetings became regular. Every day, Marcus would finish his section early and meet Lyra in their alcove. They talked about everything. Philosophy, dreams, fears, hopes. Lyra brought books from the royal library, sharing stories from across the galaxy. Marcus brought simple things, a flower he'd grown in his quarters, a piece of chocolate from Earth, a paper crane he'd folded. The princess treasured each small gift more than all the jewels princes had offered her. Word of their meetings reached Emperor Zethros. The mighty ruler, who had conquered systems and commanded fleets, found himself puzzled by his daughter's behavior. He decided to investigate personally. Using the palace's surveillance systems, he watched their next meeting. He expected to find the human, trying to seduce his daughter, perhaps angling for power or wealth. Instead, he saw Marcus teaching Lyra a card game from Earth, both of them laughing as she struggled with the rules. I don't understand, Lyra giggled as Marcus explained again. Why would I want to collect 4 of the same number? That's just how the game works, Marcus laughed. Not everything needs a deep meaning. Sometimes fun is reason enough. The Emperor watched as they played, his daughter more relaxed and happy than he'd seen her in years. When Marcus won, he didn't gloat. When Lyra won, he celebrated her victory genuinely. They shared snacks Marcus had brought, simple foods from Earth that made Lyra's eyes light up with delight. These are amazing, she exclaimed, trying something called a peanut butter sandwich. So simple, yet so satisfying. Wait until you try pizza, Marcus grinned, though I'm still trying to figure out how to make it with palace ingredients. Emperor Zethros found himself conflicted. The human showed no signs of ambition or greed. He treated Lyra not as a princess to be conquered, but as a friend to be cherished. It went against everything the emperor understood about power and politics. Meanwhile, the rejected princes grew angry. They formed an alliance, united in their outrage that a mere human janitor had captured the princess's attention. Prince Korthax led them, his pride wounded beyond measure. This insult cannot stand, he declared to the assembled princes. We offer power, wealth, and strength, yet she wastes time with a primitive who pushes a mop. What do you propose? Asked Prince Zeph of the Crystal Worlds. We eliminate the human, Korthax said coldly. Make it look like an accident. With him gone, the princess will come to her senses. The princes agreed, their wounded pride demanding satisfaction. They began planning, unaware that their meeting was overheard by Zara, a fellow janitor who worked with Marcus. Zara was from a species known for their loyalty. Marcus had helped her when she first arrived, showing her the ropes and sharing his lunch when she forgot hers. She couldn't let harm come to the only person who'd shown her kindness in the cold palace. She rushed to find Marcus, finding him in the gardens where he was carefully tending to earth flowers he'd been growing. Marcus, she whispered urgently. You're in danger. The princes plan to kill you. Marcus's hands stilled on the delicate petals. Because of Princess Lyra? Yes, you must leave. Hide. They plan to make it look like an accident. Marcus stood slowly, brushing dirt from his hands. Fear flickered across his face, but then determination settled in. I can't leave. I promised to meet her today. A promise isn't worth your life, Zara protested. Maybe not, Marcus said quietly. But breaking it would hurt her, and I won't do that. That afternoon, Marcus arrived at their usual spot to find Lyra pacing anxiously. Marcus, thank the stars, she exclaimed, then noticed his tense expression. What's wrong? He told her about the prince's plot. Lyra's face went through several emotions: shock, anger, fear, and finally, fury. How dare they? She raged. I'll have them all arrested. No, Marcus said gently. That would just prove what they think, that humans cause trouble. Besides, arresting princes would cause political problems your father doesn't need. So what do we do? Lyra asked desperately. I won't let them hurt you. Maybe. Marcus hesitated. Maybe we should stop meeting. It would be safer for everyone. No. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. You're the only real friend I've ever had. Everyone else wants something from me. Power, alliances, wealth. You just want to share stories and play cards and talk about flowers. I won't lose that. I won't lose you. Her words hung in the air between them. Marcus reached out slowly, gently taking her hand. It was the first time they'd touched beyond accidental brushes. I don't want to lose this either, he admitted. These talks with you, they're the best part of my day. Mine too, Lyra whispered. They sat in silence, hands clasped, both realizing their friendship had grown into something deeper. But the gulf between them seemed impossibly wide. She a princess, he a janitor. She immortal, he with barely a century of life. She with the galaxy at her feet, he with only his mop and bucket. Unknown to them, Emperor Zethros watched through the surveillance system again. He saw the genuine affection between them, the way they looked at each other when they thought the other wasn't watching. He saw something he hadn't seen in centuries of politics and power plays: real, honest love. The Emperor made a decision that would shake the very foundations of the Galactic Empire. The next morning, Marcus was summoned to the throne room. He entered nervously, his simple janitor uniform a stark contrast to the grandeur around him. The entire court was assembled. Nobles, princes, ambassadors from 100 worlds. Princess Lyra stood beside her father's throne, her face carefully neutral but her eyes worried. Emperor Zethros rose, his presence commanding instant silence. Marcus Chen, his voice boomed across the vast space. You stand accused of overstepping your station, of daring to befriend a princess of the realm. What say you? Marcus straightened his shoulders. If he was going to die, he'd die honest. I'm guilty of friendship, Your Majesty. If that's a crime, then I'm guilty, but I won't apologize for treating Her Highness like a person, instead of a prize. Gasps echoed through the court at his boldness. The assembled princes smirked, certain the human had just sealed his fate. "You dare speak so boldly before the Emperor?" Lord Vex hissed. "I speak truthfully," Marcus replied. "Isn't that what matters?" Emperor Zethros descended from his throne, each step echoing like thunder. He stopped before Marcus, towering over the human. "Tell me, human," the Emperor said. "My daughter could have any prince in the galaxy. What could you possibly offer her?" Marcus thought carefully before answering. "I can offer her honesty, Your Majesty. I'll never pretend to be something I'm not. I can offer her laughter, someone who sees her joy as more valuable than her crown. I can offer her simple pleasures, flowers I've grown myself, meals cooked with care, walks where we talk about dreams instead of politics." He paused, then continued. "I can't offer her armies or planets or immortality, but I can offer her a hand to hold when she's sad, ears that listen without judgment, and a heart that values her kindness over her kingdom. If that's not enough, I understand, but that's all I have." The throne room was deathly silent. Prince Korthak stepped forward, scales bristling with indignation. "This is absurd. He offers nothing but pretty words. I offer real power. Power I don't want," Princess Lyra said, stepping forward. "Father, may I speak?" The Emperor nodded. Lyra addressed the entire court. "All my life, I've been offered power, wealth, and conquest. Every prince here sees me as a prize to be won, a tool to increase their might. But Marcus," she turned to look at him, her eyes soft. "Marcus sees me, not the princess, not the title, but me." She walked to stand beside Marcus. "He teaches me card games and shares stories of rain. He grows earth flowers in alien soil just to show me something beautiful. When I cry, he offers comfort without asking for anything in return. When I dream of helping others instead of conquering them, he doesn't call me foolish." Taking Marcus's hand, she faced her father. "I choose him. Not for power or politics, but for love. If that means giving up my title, then I'll gladly be just Lyra." The court erupted in chaos. Princes shouted in outrage, nobles gasped in scandal, and Lord Vex looked ready to faint. Emperor Zethros raised his hand for silence. When it fell, he spoke. 3 months ago, I issued a secret test. I told my daughter to reject every suitor, no matter how grand their offer. I wanted to see who would persist, who would try to win her heart instead of her crown." The court stared in shock. Every prince left the moment they were rejected, their pride wounded. Not one tried to know my daughter as a person. But then came this human, who spoke to her not knowing she was a princess, who offered kindness simply because she was crying. He looked at Marcus. "You say you can only offer simple things, but you offer what none of these princes thought to give, genuine care for my daughter's happiness. In 3 months, you've shown more true nobility than bloodlines stretching back millennia." The Emperor drew himself to his full height. "I hereby decree that nobility shall no longer be determined solely by birth, but by action. That worth shall be measured not in conquered worlds, but in kindness shown, and that my daughter shall choose her own path, with whomever she wishes." "Father," Lyra gasped. "Marry him, if you wish," the Emperor continued. "Don't marry him. Be friends, be more, be whatever brings you joy. The galaxy has enough political marriages. Perhaps it's time for love." "This is outrageous," Prince Korthax roared. "The bloodlines will never accept this. Then the bloodlines will adapt or be left behind," the Emperor said coldly. "The galaxy changes. We must change with it." Marcus stood stunned as the court erupted again. Lyra squeezed his hand, tears of joy streaming down her face. "Well," she asked softly, "what do you say? Want to try being more than friends with a princess?" "I don't want to be with a princess," Marcus said, causing her face to fall until he continued. "I want to be with Lyra, the girl who can't figure out card games, who loves peanut butter sandwiches, who dreams of gardens instead of armies." "That's the best answer you could give," she whispered. In the months that followed, the galaxy watched in fascination as the princess and the janitor courted openly. Marcus continued his custodial duties, refusing a noble title. "I'm good at cleaning," he said simply. Why change? But he also worked with Lyra on her dreams. Together, they converted unused palace wings into shelters for refugees. They established schools where all species learned together. They created gardens where former enemies sat side by side, sharing meals and stories. The rejected princes eventually found other matches, some even learning from Marcus's example. Prince Corthax himself ended up falling for a baker from a mining colony, won over by her honesty and her exceptional pastries. A year later, Marcus and Lyra married in a simple ceremony in the palace gardens. Marcus wore his best janitor uniform, cleaned and pressed. Lyra wore a simple dress decorated with earth flowers Marcus had grown. "I don't have much to offer," Marcus said during his vows. "But I promise to love you on the good days and the bad, to listen when you need to talk and stay quiet when you need silence, to remind you to eat when you're too busy helping others, and to never let you forget that you're valued for your heart, not your crown. I promise to see the extraordinary in your ordinary," Lyra replied. "To find joy in simple moments, and beauty in small gestures, to support your dreams as you've supported mine, and to love you not for what you could become, but for who you are." The man who offered a crying stranger a clean cloth and changed her life forever. Emperor Zethros officiated, his voice thick with emotion. "In all my years I've overseen unions that shook galaxies and forged empires, but this simple joining of two hearts who see each other truly. This may be my greatest act as emperor." As they kissed, the assembled crowd, janitors and princes, nobles and servants, humans and aliens, cheered as one. The galaxy had learned something new that day. That love could bridge any gap, that kindness was its own nobility, and that sometimes the best choice was the one that made no sense at all. Years passed. Marcus and Lyra ruled together when Emperor Zethros eventually stepped down, bringing an era of unprecedented peace and cooperation. The Galactic Empire became known not for its might, but for its compassion. Species that had warred for millennia worked together in the gardens and schools they established, and in the palace, every janitor was treated with respect, their work valued and their opinions heard, because everyone remembered the story of the princess who chose love over power, and the janitor who taught a galaxy that the smallest acts of kindness could change the universe. Marcus never did figure out how to make proper pizza with palace ingredients, but Lyra didn't mind. She was too busy enjoying peanut butter sandwiches with the man who'd seen her heart when everyone else saw only her crown. In the end, the rejected princes had offered her the galaxy, but Marcus had offered her something infinitely more precious, himself, wholly and honestly, and that, as any wise grandmother would say, was worth more than all the stars in the sky.